Okay, well, choice of J, choice of statistical tests utilized in answering the question, along with sample results produced using a spreadsheet. And so let's go looking for that. Here are the results. No significant difference. Okay, it was hypothesized. There would be, well, it was the null hypothesis would be that there is no difference, not no significant difference. Now, it's possible that they, because of the way they generated their data, they expected there to be no significant difference. Obviously, there was differences. These are different, but when they run this, I guess there was no significant difference. Now, what I'm looking for is, okay, where do they mention what test they used? A non-athlete's relationship generated slopes with non-zero. Okay, so they're talking slopes. Okay, so finally here, under their interpretation, they did not put it with their results, which, again, that's okay. I mean, as long as they have it, but I would put the results with the results. I mean, these first few lines here are still results. Utilizing regression analysis, so they used regression for determination. Okay, well, that's great. They used regression, but that means we ought to know what the variables are. Now, certainly GPA, dependency between GPA and then involvement in athletics. Well, okay, was that the male, female, or just the athletes, non-athletes? Right, so let's keep looking, and maybe they've got that here. Null hypothesis, there's no difference. Great. They didn't notice, they didn't say no significant difference. They said no difference. That is correct, null hypothesis. They told us the alpha level, 0.05, p-value, 0.54, no relationship, great. Okay, now they didn't say that we failed to reject the null hypothesis. That would be nice. But they certainly are implying it here because there's no relationship or dependency, so they're independent. Between gender and academic achievement. So that, it looks like they just looked at gender and academic achievement. It looks like generated p-value, one was suggesting there's no association between the predictor athletic status and academic achievement. Okay. Greater than the 0.05, so the null hypothesis is accepted. Now, typically you'd say is not rejected, but accepted. I'm okay with that. Student athlete and non-student athlete population, so they're just kind of going through and interpreting. So notice they give the p-values, they give an answer about the null hypothesis, but then notice they tell us what it means. They mention the GPAs and athletes versus non-athletes and so forth. Now, so in their results, and I guess this is probably interpretation as well. So so here's J was the statistical test, and then K is the interpretation. So I guess those sort of ran together in there, so we'll treat them together. Let's see. So here is their regression analysis. They did athlete, non-athlete, and gender. Okay, so they did those separately. as two different variables of 0, 1. And so here are their slopes, and there's the p-values they mentioned, the 0.149 and the 0.54. Now, I would have probably, if I was going to call this one over here 0.54, I'd have probably called this one 0.15. But again, that's fine. So we see how they ran those together in a regression here. They weren't very clear about it. Where the heck am I now? Let's see, is this the results? Yeah, there's the results. And okay, so maybe I take back what I said. I think I missed the p-values and all that table before, and saw this. I'm not sure why I missed that, but I did. But we'll still talk about these all together. So that's nice. They ran a full, a single regression through both variables into it. So I take back what I said back here about them looking at this as a single variable with 4 levels. No, they did the box plots that way, and that's great. But they actually ran their regression with 2 different variables, the athletes and non-athlete, and then the gender. And they got these slopes, slope of about 0.9 and a slope of about 0.04. But notice when you look at the standard errors, actually that's interesting. Standard errors are both the same size, but that's really weird. I don't know. I would kind of look at that carefully, I suppose, if I saw that. I probably did at the time, but I don't remember. But anyway, they have their different t-table values, and then they got their p-values, and of course those are both very large, and so yeah, nothing going on there. And they do the interpretation. And again, what I like is that with that interpretation, they're telling us what it means. They restate what happened, and they tell us what it means. They've got a table in showing me the results of the calculation, so that's great. They actually, with these, I'm not sure they wanted these particular box plots where they just did the male, female, and the athlete, non-athlete. I think this was a good one where they separated them all out, and we looked at them separately that way because that's the way they ended up analyzing it. But I don't know, that may be okay too. But definitely here, and they mentioned the slopes. Let's see, slopes, 0.095 and 0.040, and so there they give those results, and quickly the interpretation. Let's see, and so in their case, had they really generated such data, had they really gotten these data, what they are saying is, well, if they found this, that there was no statistical difference, well then, if they're worried about their GPA, it doesn't really matter whether they do the sports or not, is what this says. That's not an impact. Now my guess is that's probably not true, but again, they just made up their data, so this isn't a real study, and I'll do a video on making up data as well. And so I think that kind of takes care of results and interpretation. you know, they hit those high points. I don't know that there's really anything as I scroll back through it. Nothing major missing, given that they had already pulled things down to only have the gender and the athletic status go with GPA. So, you know, I think their study is missing some confounding variables because they never really addressed them. But given what they ended up going with, I think they did their results in their interpretation pretty well. Okay, so, you know, they've got this calculation which shows me why they, you know, believe what they believe, and I agree that with their interpretation based on these numbers, you know, so that's all good. Okay, so that takes care of those.